we give her a round of applause? I'd now like to tell a joke instead of my speech. I'm sure many of you have probably heard it. Two old men, Jim and Steve, they're sitting on a park bench, eating pigeons and talking about baseball. So Jim turns to Steve and asks, "Do you think there's baseball in heaven?" Steve thinks about it for a minute and replies, "I don't know. Let's make a deal. If I die first, I'll come back and I'll tell you if there's baseball in heaven. And if you die first, you do the same." A few months later, poor Steve passes on. One day soon afterwards, Jim is sitting there, feeding the pigeons by himself, when he hears a voice whisper, "Jim, Jim." Jim responds, "Steve, is that you?" "Yes, it is, Jim," whispers Steve's ghost. Jim, still amazed, asks, "So, is there baseball in heaven?" "Well," says Steve, "I've got good news and bad news." "Well, give me the good news first," says Jim. Steve says, "Well, there is baseball in heaven." Jim responds, "That's great. Now what's the bad news?" Steve sighs and whispers, "Well, your starting pitcher was Friday." So, as many of you know, I played varsity baseball for St. Joseph's Spring. Not actually, but I replied to all emails. So, along with being an all-star athlete my entire life, that's a joke, I also love Legos. So, when I was really little, as I'm sure is the case with most of you, it didn't really matter what you built. Colors didn't have to match. The pieces didn't have to fit together. You just built. Now, during this time, you were laying down the first blocks of your life. And without even realizing it, you were literally building your life up around you. And it didn't matter how creative you got. Now, when I was young, I don't know about you guys, I was quite the creative child. I think my parents were a little nervous when their toddler boy kept asking for a play pigeon and kept singing Shania Twain. I think they were probably still nervous until Maddie came along. As all good things do, that time in my life came to an end, along with Shania Twain's career. So, you start realizing that there are rules you have to follow. So, I kept building Legos, but I had to follow the instructions. Okay, so, I get a new box of Legos. I would follow the instructions step by step. And then once my creation looked exactly like it did on the outside of the box, well, I'd be satisfied and that would be that. So somewhere along the way, you stop allowing yourself to create. So you continue to go through life, but you don't have to think too much anymore. So you just follow the rules. But there are two types of rules. We have the formal rules, so we're told that we have to share, that you can't talk back to your parents. I think we need those, and that's fairly obvious. Although if you ask Charlie Sheen, he may beg to differ. But I don't know many people who aspire to be like Charlie Sheen yet. And then there are the unspoken rules. So without directly realizing it, we're told who to be, what to do, and how to build your Legos. Now, as you're building your life for yourself, you realize that you're not the only architect. So eventually you stop building Legos. You lose interest, it's not fun anymore, or you step on so many Legos barefoot that you've thrown them all into the fireplace. So you keep building your life, but you don't have to think about it anymore. Someone else has taken over the plans, so you just do what you're told. And it's not your parents, it's not your teachers. It's reading something in a magazine, or hearing something your friend says at school, or watching CNN, or Mr. Connolly pressuring you into giving him a shout out to your valedictorian speech. And then you're brainwashed. So when each one of us is born, we all have a spark in our heart, and it's incredibly bright. But as life goes on, keep piling on top of each other until our minds look just the same as everyone else's. And I promise you that if God intended for us all to be the same, He would have made just one of us. So here's my request. When we move on next year and head out to college, people will tell us what we're supposed to think. Don't listen. People will tell us what we should look like. Don't listen. People will tell you what type of person you should be. Don't listen. People will tell you that it's a good idea to take relationship advice from Mr. Powers. Please don't listen. And finally, people will tell you that you're too old to build Legos in your college dorm. Don't listen. So the only way to really discover who you are and what you're supposed to do is to think. If you really think deeply enough, you'll figure out where you're supposed to be. When God created the earth, He did not make it as an assembly line. He made it more beautiful and intricate than any of us could possibly imagine, and He expects each one of us to be just as beautiful and just as intricate. So eventually, we'll be real adults, and we'll finally understand why our parents are going through midlife crises right now, and why my amazingly sweet, brilliant aunt decided to get a full back tattoo last year. So my goal is, and I hope all of you strive for this as well, is to not dread waking up each morning. I don't want to sigh with exasperation every time my alarm goes off. I don't want to spend my life waiting for the next best thing to come, or for Shania Twain to finally release a new album. Now I want to ask myself as many questions as I can every day, and look for the answers in the world around me. Because all the answers are there, and you'll find them, as long as you continue to let your spark shine. So there's a quote that I think is very important. It says, "Being considered crazy by those who are still victims of cultural conditioning is a compliment." This was said by Jason Hairston, a man who's probably been called crazy more than most of us combined. He's a therapist, and he heals people suffering from anxiety, depression, and everything in between using music, art, and conversation. 3 things that we often lose sight of when we let our spark become covered. So it's okay to be considered crazy, because it's a much more fulfilling life. So I have a challenge for each one of you. Before the summer ends, I want you to find as many Legos as you can. I want you to take those Legos, and I want you to build some. Doesn't matter what you build. Doesn't matter if the colors match, or even if the pieces fit together. You don't have to show anyone what you built, just as long as you're proud of it. And then I want you to take your creation, and I want you to let it inspire you as you build the rest of your life. Because I promise you, you'll learn more about yourself and more about the world than you could possibly imagine. So continue asking yourself questions. Never be satisfied with what other people tell you. Don't get bogged down with stress, and promise me that you will never live a life that someone else created for you. Have fun, love others, and love yourself for who you were really meant to be, and not on how well you follow the status quo. And finally, ask yourself the important questions, like, is there baseball in heaven?